What if it is said that thousands of years ago, on this very earth, our sages revealed five profound secrets of consciousness, through the understanding of which a person can be freed from the deepest fears of life: the fear of failure, the worry of losing something, and the fears associated with the limitations of the body as well. This is not a mere imagination, it is the same profound knowledge of the Upanishads, which modern science today is trying to understand at different levels. In this contemplation, we will journey through those five great statements that convey the experience that a human is not just a limited body, but is the very consciousness that never diminishes and never perishes. Today, this journey transcends the limits of time and leads inward to the depths within. The Upanishads, which means sitting near the Guru with faith and humility, are the essence of the knowledge of the Vedas, called Vedanta. These are not merely intellectual texts, but paths of knowledge that open the doors of consciousness, which we have closed ourselves through ignorance and attachment. The sages preserve this divine knowledge through dialogues, stories, and great sayings, because these great sayings are not just words, but living sources of experience. Now, it is necessary to clearly understand one thing here. The knowledge of the Upanishads does not begin from some distant sky. It begins from the most common and deepest problem of human life. From this very point, the first mystery is revealed. There is a constant restlessness within humans, a desire to obtain something more, to add something else. One cannot enjoy what is available because the vision is always fixed on what is not yet there. If there is a house, one wants a bigger one. If there is a job, one wants a higher position. The tendency to mark everything as mine gradually gives rise to stress, insecurity, and fear. This desire to become the master ultimately makes a person a slave to things. This is the bondage, and it is to break this bondage that the Upanishads present their first secret. The proclamation of the Isha Upanishad is very straightforward and profound. All this, whatever exists in this changing universe, should be covered by the Lord. Protect the self by renunciation. Do not covet anyone's wealth. The meaning is that everything in this world, whether moving or stationary, is enveloped by that one consciousness. Therefore, enjoy with a sense of renunciation and do not covet anyone's wealth, because in reality, nothing here belongs to anyone personally. This teaching is not about renouncing life, but about learning the art of living life with the right perspective. Enjoy, but without attachment. Just as a caretaker uses vast wealth but knows inwardly that he is not its owner. It is this understanding that brings lightness, balance, and fearlessness in life. When this vision begins to manifest in behavior, the nature of experience changes. While sitting in a vehicle, entering a house, or observing one's achievements, there arises an inner remembrance that all this is part of the vast cosmic order flowing through us. Then the burden of mine and will be taken away naturally lifts. Where there is no insistence on ownership, the fear of loss also diminishes. For this reason, the enjoyment of life becomes deeper and more effortless, like admiring a flower without the desire to pluck it. If at this point you are wondering how the mystery of the Upanishads relates to your life, share your experiences and questions about the mystery of the Upanishads in the comments. This dialogue will further clarify this spiritual journey. This first mystery teaches that even while living in the world, it is not necessary to be bound by it. True freedom is born not from external renunciation, but from a change in perspective. This is the initial touch of Upanishadic wisdom. When the illusion of external ownership gradually loosens, the mind naturally turns inward. Then another deeper question arises. If things are not mine, if everything is encompassed by that one power, then who am I myself? It is from here that the second mystery reveals itself. Now the focus shifts to the experience that makes a person feel limited and incomplete from within. The feeling repeatedly arises that I am ordinary, my abilities are limited, my understanding is restricted. One's identity is linked to the body position, education, or social role, and consciousness is considered merely a product of the brain. Due to this narrow perspective, a person fails to recognize their true power. They perceive themselves as a small wave and forget the ocean from which they originated. They remain unaware of the very power within that is operating the entire universe. To dissolve this limited identity, the Aitareya Upanishad gives a very clear and decisive statement. Consciousness is Brahman. This does not mean that Brahman has consciousness, but that consciousness itself is Brahman. The cause by which seeing, hearing, thinking, and experiencing become possible, and by which it is also possible to know that all this is happening, is not an ordinary element. That is the supreme truth. The Upanishad clarifies that the one through whom a person sees, hears, speaks, and tastes is that consciousness. Whatever creature breathes, walks, flies, or remains still, its foundation is that same consciousness. The entire universe rests upon it, and that consciousness is Brahman. When this awareness begins to stabilize in life, the vision changes profoundly. In moments of despair, fear, or weakness, if one pauses for a moment and simply observes the experience of being, it becomes clear that emotions come and go. Thoughts keep changing, circumstances keep transforming, but the one who is observing them remains always the same. That consciousness was there in childhood, and it is the same today. The body changed, the mind changed, experiences changed, but the awareness of I am remained steady. This is the true identity of the soul. In moments of dialogue, when the consciousness present behind the words is experienced, it becomes clear that the same consciousness exists in the other person as well. This understanding deepens relationships and naturally reduces divisions. If at this level, you are wondering how this truth of consciousness can become an experience in your life, then while writing Prajnanam Brahma, share your thoughts in the comments. This second secret frees a person from their narrow identity and reminds them that they are not merely a collection of body and mind, but the very infinite consciousness from which the entire universe is illuminated. When it begins to become clear that consciousness itself is Brahman and that same consciousness is present within us as the witness, this realization does not stop there. Another subtle question naturally arises within the mind. If that same consciousness is within me, then is it limited only to me? Is that same consciousness not also in others, in nature, and in that supreme entity called God? From here, the awareness of consciousness moves beyond personal experience and journeys toward universal truth. Here, another deep sorrow of human life is revealed: the experience of separation, considering oneself alone, feeling different from others, feeling detached from nature, and perceiving the Supreme Being as located far away. An invisible wall of I and you arises within the mind. This sense of duality gives birth to fear. This duality becomes the root of jealousy, hatred, and conflict. It seems as if the human is bound here in a limited body, and the ultimate truth is situated somewhere far away in an unreachable sky. Because of this illusion, one searches outside, while the Upanishads always point inward. To dispel this deep illusion, the Chandogya Upanishad gives a great statement, which is called the heart of the entire Vedanta. The Guru Udalaka repeatedly makes his son Shvetaketu realize this truth, that thou art. The meaning is very simple and profound. Tat means that supreme truth, that Brahman, the cause of the entire universe. Tvam means this individual soul, this conscious being who is now listening. Asi means are. You are not separate from it, you are that. The Upanishad here is not speaking of any emotional consolation, but revealing the supreme truth of Advaita Vedanta. To explain this truth, the Guru gives visible and intuitive examples. Nothing is visible in the banyan seed, yet from that invisible power, a huge tree grows. Salt dissolved in water is not visible, but its taste is present in every drop. In the same way, Brahman is not seen anywhere outside, but it pervades every particle, every being, every experience. That same power is within you. That same consciousness is you. When this awareness begins to descend into life, the perspective on relationships changes. Whenever feelings of anger, jealousy, or distance arise towards someone, the remembrance awakens that the consciousness I am experiencing within myself is also present in the other person. External forms, thoughts, and circumstances may differ, just as the shapes of ornaments differ, but their essence is the same. This understanding naturally gives rise to compassion, tolerance, and human unity. The experience of observing nature also changes. The stability of the mountain, the flow of the river, the silent presence of the trees, all these are governed by the same consciousness that exists within as a witness. This creates harmony with nature rather than conflict. Prayer then ceases to be an external plea. It becomes a process of becoming aware of one's own vast form. The seeker does not communicate with a distant God, but with the very consciousness that is his own fundamental nature. If at this point the question arises within you as to how the Upanishadic truth of Tatvamasi can become an experience in your life, then share your thoughts on this Mahavakya in the comments. This dialogue will further clarify the journey of self realization. This third secret breaks down the wall standing between I and you. It clarifies that separation is only the result of ignorance. The essence of the Upanishads, Vedanta, and Sanatan Dharma is that the soul and Brahman are not different, but two names of the same truth. From this realization, the door to love, compassion, and unity opens, and consciousness takes another step toward its completeness. When it begins to become clear through the third mystery that the soul and Brahman are not separate, that there is no real distance between he and you, a natural question arises within the seeker. If this is true, then how can it be directly experienced? How can this knowledge not remain limited to hearing or understanding, but become a living experience of life? It is here that the fourth mystery reveals itself, decisively changing the direction of the quest. It is now understood that consciousness itself is Brahman and it pervades everywhere. Yet this realization often seems intellectual. The mind asks where the experience of that Brahman can be found. It tends to search outside, in pilgrimage sites, symbols, and distant realms. This external search causes wandering throughout life because that which is being sought is not separate from the seeker. This situation is like the musk deer that roams the forests, following a fragrance, unaware that the scent is rising from within itself. To end this confusion, the Mandukya Upanishad makes a very clear and decisive declaration. This Upanishad is small in size but extremely comprehensive in meaning and is considered the essence of all Upanishadic Vedanta. Its Mahavakya, great saying, is Ayam, Atma, Brahma. This self is Brahman. It means that this soul itself is Brahman. This statement goes one step further than Tvam Asi, that thou art. There, the Guru makes the disciple realize that you are the supreme truth. Here, it is not a teaching but a declaration of direct experience. Ayam means this, which is currently evident, requiring no imagination or belief. And what is that? The soul, this very existence, this natural awareness of I am. The Upanishad says that this very soul, this direct experience, is Brahman. This means that there is no need to search for Brahman anywhere outside. He is neither located far away in the sky nor in any particular realm. He is always present within, at the very center of one's own existence. The Mandukya Upanishad discusses the states of consciousness, waking state, dream state, and deep sleep. The one who knows these three states, who is the witness of them, is called the Turiya. This Turiya is the self, and this is Brahman. The states keep changing, but the one who observes them remains steady. When this truth descends into life, the path of spiritual practice begins to become clear. The method for this is to turn the gaze inward. When in calmness, attention is fixed on the flow of breath. Gradually, the turmoil of thought starts to quiet down. As the thoughts become still, that silence reveals itself, which has always been present. That very silence is the sign of the soul. Before resting at night, spending a few moments asking oneself the question, "Who am I?" is also a simple practice in this direction. Observing that I am not this body because the body keeps changing. I am not this mind either because thoughts and emotions can be observed. Through this observation, the practitioner gradually approaches the witness who is watching all these. That is the soul, and according to the Upanishads, that is Brahman. This fourth secret completely changes the direction of the search. It clarifies that the truth being sought outside has always been present within. Now the journey is not outward, but inward. This is the decisive turning point of Upanishadic knowledge, where the seeker stops wandering and begins to return to their true nature. When it becomes clear through the fourth mystery that Brahman is not somewhere outside, but is always present as the soul at the center of its own existence, the journey moves towards its final and highest peak. Until now, truth has been understood, the direction of experience found, and the vision turned inward. But here a subtle difference still remains, the difference between knowing and being. This is the point where the journey of the Upanishads reaches its climax. Here a person experiences a profound truth. As long as knowledge remains only a thought, liberation remains incomplete. Just as a prince, even if he knows that he is a prince, cannot be considered transformed until he sits on his throne and accepts his true nature. Similarly, as long as a person considers himself a limited, helpless, and bound being, all the knowledge of the Upanishads cannot free him. The deepest sorrow is that a person fails to accept his true glory. To remove this final covering, the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad declares what is called the pinnacle of Vedanta. This is not merely a philosophical statement, but a proclamation of the awakened soul. I am Brahman. This means I am Brahman. Here, I does not mean this body or this mind. It is the soul that has now awakened to its true nature. This is not a declaration of ego, but a truth statement that arises after the dissolution of ego. When the soul frees itself from its bonds and recognizes itself, this statement spontaneously emerges from within. It is the realization that I am not a limited entity. I am the imperishable, all pervading consciousness that exists in every form. I am not the wave, I am the ocean itself. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad indicates that at the beginning of creation there was only Brahman. When that Brahman realized itself, that awareness manifested. From that very moment, whoever has known this truth as a direct experience has become established in Brahman. This statement is not merely about knowing, it is a state of becoming. Here, the distinction between the seeker and the sought ends. This experience does not arise from any forceful effort. It is the natural result of deep understanding and practice of the first four mysteries. Still, every situation in life can be made a gateway to it. When life challenges, when failure shakes the mind, when insult wounds within, if the practitioner can return to that calm center and awaken the remembrance within that I am not this situation, I am far beyond it, then consciousness immediately begins to rise. This maxim can be lived as a remembrance. To experience inwardly with the breath that existence is not limited. It is not merely a repetition of words, but an invitation towards the direction of experience. As the practice deepens, this awareness begins to transform from thought into experience. A moment comes when this statement no longer remains in the mind, but life itself begins to reveal it. It then becomes clear that this is not ordinary positive thinking, but the remembrance of one's supreme reality. At that moment, fear, sorrow, and bondage lose their foundation because they were based on the limited identity that has now been shattered. This fifth and final secret does not lead a person towards liberation from bondage, but rather reinstates them on their natural throne. It restores their true identity, eternal consciousness, blissful soul, and complete freedom. This is the ultimate message of the Upanishads, and this is the pinnacle of this journey. Now, this journey reaches its natural conclusion. What has been said and understood so far is not five separate things, but a sequential journey of consciousness. This journey begins from an external perspective and ultimately rests in its own true form. First, the realization arises that the entire universe is enveloped by a single power, and therefore, life can be lived without the burden of ownership, with an attitude of renunciation. This vision frees one from attachment to objects and the fear of losing them. Then it becomes clear that this power is not a distant force, but consciousness itself, the same consciousness through which seeing, thinking, and experiencing are possible. This understanding liberates a person from their narrow identity and makes them aware of their true potential. Thereafter, the Upanishads remind us that the supreme truth being sought externally is not separate. The same consciousness, the same Brahman, is present in the form of the individual. This breaks the illusion of separation and gives rise to the experience of harmony, compassion, and unity in life. Then the direction of the search turns completely inward, where it becomes clear that the soul and Brahman are not different. That which is present within, as the witness, is the supreme truth. And ultimately, this journey reaches the point where knowing and being become one. Then it is no longer a thought, but a direct experience that the true nature is unlimited. This is the state where the soul is established in its full identity. This is the ultimate realization of Vedanta. Upanishads do not provide any new knowledge. They only remind you of your true identity, which you have never actually forgotten. These five secrets are not meant to change, improve, or create a new person. Their sole purpose is that a person gradually sheds the illusions and limited beliefs imposed upon them and recognizes their true nature. Man wanders outside in search of peace, while peace is not an object but his own nature. He seeks joy in achievements, while joy is not a goal but the natural essence of existence. And he searches for God somewhere far away in some realm or symbol, while God is not a separate entity but the very consciousness that reveals itself every moment in his seeing, thinking, and experiencing. When this realization deepens, there is no need to add or change anything in life. Only the remembrance of one's own truth remains. It then becomes clear that the external search was actually the result of inner forgetfulness. This is the message of the Upanishads. This is the essence of Vedanta. This is the peace of self-knowledge, where questions cease, efforts calm down, and the search ends, resting directly in experience. There, life does not run towards any goal but becomes steady in its own original nature. Now, this contemplation is in your hands. Reflect on these truths and try to incorporate them into your daily life. Share in the comments which of these five secrets touched your inner self the most. If you find this knowledge useful, share it with other seekers, because the nature of knowledge is that it expands when shared. Stay connected with this channel to understand the profound truths of the Upanishads, Vedanta, and Sanatan Dharma in simple and pure Hindi. In the end, the same eternal reminder: arise, awake, and stop, not until the goal is reached. Rise, wake up, and attain the supreme knowledge to realize that ultimate truth. Thank you.